This is where football gets a bit confusing because you score goals right from the outset, but collectively there's a relegation and you find yourself on the move. Now, Portsmouth come along and there's money in there. Yeah. Did that give you an early sense that your career was going to have these peaks and troughs and these slightly strange moments?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. It was like you say, it was there was circumstances in every move that I've had, and obviously that first one, why would I want to move? I'm an Ealing boy, I'm Shepherd's Bush is down the road. I was living at home with my mum and dad, believe it or not, at that time, and I was scoring goals for a great club, and I didn't want to move, but at that time QPR was in massive financial trouble, and obviously we just got relegated, and Portsmouth had bid 1 point, I think it was Portsmouth and Burnley with Stan Turner had bid 1.2 million. For me, and they'd bought me for 60 grand, 8 months previous. So it was a good return for them. And I spoke to Jerry, and obviously Jerry spoke to my dad and myself, and I think it was best for all concerned. And obviously when I spoke to Graham Ricks, who was the manager at Portsmouth, I really believed in what he was doing. So it was best for me to go.
Yeah, and the goals kept coming, didn't they? I mean, I think you went at something like a goal every other game for Graham Ricks' Portsmouth. Was there a thought in the back of your mind that this was a showcase, that there was a move back to the big time if you carried on producing?
Yeah, well, there was talk about it. I mean, when I think I got to sort of like Christmas time, and I was on a good run of goals, and I was doing very well, and there was people saying that because I was still only sort of 20, 21. Yeah. People were saying, obviously, people are watching you and taking notice, and it didn't bother me too much. I was just carry on with what happened, but obviously, I didn't anticipate moving to Aston Villa so soon, and for that, huge amount of money for what it was in those days.
Yeah, big amount of money. I mean, you've gone on to virtually, I think, £50 million worth of accumulated transfer fees, but that was the big one that also brought big pressure. And wow, I mean, you look at Aston Villa now, and we've been saying this for some years now, when things don't go right at Villa, people go, oh, it's different. There's an atmosphere, there's an expectancy there. What happened at Villa?
For me, it was amazing. I think it's such a huge club, and it was an honour really to go up there. And like I say, aside for £5 million, and I went into the changing room having, I've played with some big players, but then I got in the dressing room. Schmeichel, as I walked in, there was Peter Schmeichel, there was Paul Merson, there was David Ginola, Dion Dublin, obviously Lee Hendry, Gareth Barry, Ronnie Johnson, Man United, Steve Stone. There was Ian Taylor. There were names, were just household names, and I'd walking in there. Obviously, I was thinking, right, and I still felt I had the ability, but for whatever reason, I just felt I wasn't ready for the Premier League then, and it was a real shame because I knew I'd eventually become a Premier League player, but I have to be honest and say to you, when I went to Aston Villa at 21, I wasn't ready.
Was it in the head as much as anything else? I mean, you just listed a dressing room full of personalities. Or was it, again, physically? Where were you short, do you think?
No, not at all. I mean, personality-wise, I still, Lee Hendry and Gareth Barry are classed as very good friends, even still today. Dion Dublin as well was a huge help for me. I can't stress how good he was with me, as a centre-forward who's done everything in the game. For myself, coming there at Aston Villa, he took me under his wing and looked after me fantastically well. So it was nothing to do with that. I just genuinely felt, everyone knew in training I was scoring goals, I was doing great. But I think physically I wasn't quite ready for the demands of the Premier League. I look at Michael Owen, Steven Gerrard, these types of players. They were men when they were like 15, 16. Michael Owen had blister in place. Wayne Rooney was, it was unbelievable. And he belly burst on the scene at 17, 18. I don't think I felt technically I was ready, but physically I wasn't, and for the demands of what is a tough league.
It's funny, just going back a little bit there, you spoke about Dion, and of course Dion's such a wonderful personality, but having people who can mentor you, and maybe Les Ferdinand to an extent as well, how important is it? Are you good at that? Are you good at being mentored, taking guidance off people and turning it to your own advantage?
I think obviously now, being more experienced and stuff like that, I'd like to take what obviously Dion did for me. Les, these people. Les was fantastic with me at QPR as well, at Tottenham. Sorry, when I was with him there, he was amazing. And these are players that you look up to. And I think sometimes as a player, like I do it myself, you don't realise how much young players look up to players who have achieved things. And even a couple of words or, encouragement, just to know, like, oh, watching. And, Dion was amazing, as Les was.
And that's something that you try to bring to what you do now.
Without doubt, yeah. I think I'm probably still, a little bit old school in that regard. And, certainly I know that how much of a help they were, Dion and Les. They probably won't even remember. Les probably won't even remember what he said to me at Tottenham. But I always remember they tried to loan me out to Dulwich Hamlet, and I always remember Les Ferdinand saying to David Pleat that no, he's much better than that. What you're doing there, he should be going to a Championship or Division 1 club then. Little things like that just made me feel so much better, and that's just how Les was.
So, Les, what more do you have to say about him? Interesting. Before we carry on, I mean, this has come through a couple of times, old school, what have you. You actually, having come from and this is for an international audience, there was a thing called the youth training scheme. So obviously this was something that doesn't happen today, but it was a sort of a proper old school apprenticeship, if you will, as a footballer that you don't really see today. How much of what you did then do you think has impacted where you've gone?
No, without a doubt. I mean, like I did, it was a YTS scheme. We had 2 years and we were cleaning boots. And I actually cleaned David Janola's boots. And the year he won the Player of the Year, he was on absolute fire. And, I put it all down to my dubbing technique. But yeah, and I remember it was Nike at the time that obviously not too happy with me. I was just putting loads of black stuff on them and rubbing it in, and you couldn't even see the tick. So, but it worked. So he got Player of the Year. So, but it was grounding and it was great, and we enjoyed it. We had jobs to do after training. We didn't leave the training ground. Ledley King was part of my youth team. It was myself, Ledley King, Luke Young, probably the players that made it. It was great time. We didn't leave the training ground until it was dark. I'd be doing jobs and stuff like that, and then I'd have to get the central line from Chigwell all the way back to Ealing Broadway. It took me 2 hours, and then back again the next day. And it was great. We loved it, and it was probably the best time of football life, really. And we weren't on any money whatsoever, but it was just loads of fun.
Okay, so the Villa thing didn't work. There was time at Norwich as well, and then Southampton come along, and we're going to get into Harry obviously and talk about that. So talk about the Southampton move, which obviously was, for a team that was going to struggle, that was starting to struggle, but again for you, important goals, benchmark moments, whether scoring against Portsmouth or whatever it might be in cup football. Yeah. It worked again. It clicked for you, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I think even at Aston Villa, I went on loan to Norwich, and I did really well there. We won the league, went for 3 months there, and then I came back up at Villa, and I was flying in training. Any game I was playing, I felt great, and I knew I was ready then, for the Premier League. But for whatever reason, I wasn't getting a game, and the manager was David O'Leary by then, and I don't think he fancied me as a player really, which is happens in football. So I knew I had to make a step down, and saying a step down, but it wasn't really, because Southampton are a great club, and they bought me, and it was Paul Sturrock who bought me, and the same sort of thing happened, and I was at a crossroads. There was players playing ahead of me, and I wasn't quite getting a game, and it got to sort of like Christmas time, and I was thinking, God, where am I going with my career? What's happening? And then thankfully, I say thankfully because Paul Sturrock was good, but he left. Steve Wigley came in, the same thing happening. He left. Thankfully, Harry came in and sort of saved me, really. He saved my career in that way, because he came in and he told me, for himself and Kevin Phillips, stay fit. We're going to play every single game, and that was what happened. And I just, grew in confidence, and every game I went into, I felt like I was going to score or do well. And myself and Kevin Phillips did really well, and I think I scored 16 goals after Christmas, and it was a great run for me, and I just felt full of confidence.
Yeah, something like 16 goals in 33 league games as well. And again, people are paying attention. But this time around, there's an even bigger club, if you will, than anybody that's been associated with you in the past. We'll get on to who it was in just a moment. But again, did you think, I'm putting myself in the shop window? Or do you just concentrate on scoring goals?
No, I was loving it. I was just loving being settled. I was happy. I would have stayed at Southampton for life. That was literally what I thought was going to happen. I thought, James Beattie, I think, moved on to Everton, and I thought, right, I'm replacing James Beattie. This is me. I was happy with that, and scoring goals and loving it. And obviously, like you say, it was a bit of a bolt from the blue. But you know, we ended up going down. I had a great season personally, but it wasn't enough, and Liverpool came in.
Yeah, it was Liverpool, but it wasn't just any old Liverpool. It happened to be the reigning European champions Liverpool that came in for you, and that's where we'll go next.
Crouch, what a chance!
It took me ages to score. I was getting ridiculed. It felt like the rest of the world was having a go at me.